Hello everyone, I'm Cassandra.
And I'm Mom.
And this is Millennial Mom. And today we are here to talk about Ready to Love, Season 3, Episode 7, Sticky Situations. And honestly, I don't even think some of these situations are sticky. It's just that some people just need to go. So, let's get into the video. So we start off this episode with everyone pretty much talking about the situation with Naya. And I have to say, Naya surprised me last episode, but she really surprised me this episode.
Oh, yeah.
Because the main topic of the table discussion with Rashid, Simone, Adriana, Edwin, the people who were there, was how kind of cold it was for Naya just to flip the script on Chris because of the whole financial situation. Mm-hmm. And they kind of want to know, well, Edwin, what are you thinking? Because we see that she's trying to push up on you now.
Right, and Edwin was saying, it's still too early to know she's being genuine, but they shared a kiss. They're like, okay. Like, I guess, kind of like, I think the situation is like, if she could do it to Chris,
she gonna do it to you.
Yeah, be careful. So that was like the underlying conversation.
Of course, they probably should have came out and said that, but they probably think, he's a grown man. He's just gonna do what he wants to do anyways.
Mm-hmm. So after we see that scene, the men meet up with Tommy, and we find out that one lady is going home. And Tommy emphasizes,
I feel like it should be more than one lady going home, but that's just me.
Okay. Well, Tommy emphasizes, go ahead and make those connections. Who you feeling? See what the vibe is. Go out and mix and mingle. I think he's really talking to a few men in the room, but
like who?
We won't single them out now. But if you're asking me,
I'm asking you, who do you think he's talking about?
I think he's talking about Edwin and the Khalfani, and I think maybe Anthony, because I still have yet to see Anthony really date around just yet.
Yeah, he was only just making connections with Denise. So it was really good to see him in this episode talking to other people. But you know what was interesting after they have all that conversation? Khalfani and Adriana are now sitting, they're talking. I mean, some might say that they're booed up together. Others might say, they're just trying to get to know each other. But this looked like it put a little bit of a bad taste in Rashid's mouth. But Rashid wasn't being like real malice about it when it came to Denise. Because that's what I'm going to choose. Because Denise was very, very petty to me in my eyes. Just walking by saying, y'all cute. Stuff like that. Like, if this is your man or who you're trying to pursue and you know that this is a show, right, Mom, that people do this on, that you're supposed to go talk to other people, why are you being so, hard on Khalfani? Now, sometimes I do think Adriana be doing stuff just to poke at Denise, but at this point, it's kind of like, is Denise just not supposed to talk to Khalfani, period, because Denise don't like it?
Well, Denise... You mean is Adriana not supposed to talk to Khalfani because Denise don't like it? Well, yes. I think that's what Denise thinks and feels. But when Khalfani and Adriana were having their date and they're talking, and I've said this from the beginning, they do seem to have a connection now. Whether it's booed up, I think it's 50-50, and I think it's leaning more either way. But I think Adriana and Khalfani have a connection. I also think Adriana and Rashid have a connection, but I give more to Adriana and Khalfani. Now, Khalfani also notices how Denise's jealousy tendencies come up. I'm thinking, you just now seen this, Khalfani?
No, he been seen this, but it was just a little bit more stink on it this time. Because when she did it previous episodes, he kind of told her that he doesn't really like that, just be you. I like you for you. And she's like, okay. But this time with her walking around doing her little ad libs, it was very immature for this show that's supposed to be about mature men and women.
Ready to love. That's what it's for. Right. So after the date with Adriana, Khalfani decides he's going to Denise's room. Once he comes in the room, Denise is laying there like, oh, so you couldn't came to me first? Like, what's going on with that situation? And Khalfani tells her, listen, just like you said, I'm here to find love. I'm here to mix and mingle, see who else I have a connection with. And Denise wasn't hearing that. She was listening, But she wasn't receiving, for sure. And Khalfani was saying, like, he's not into, like, whatever she's putting out.
The aggressiveness.
Exactly. And I don't think Denise really was taking that into account, because she says, you know, I'm here. You know, I made a connection. I'm not looking for anyone else. And if I'm with you, I'm with you. But Khalfani
it's
also...
me or no one.
Right, but Khalfani needs to be on that same page, but he's not, because he's got that twinkle in both eyes.
Then also later on in that night, we finally see Edwin and Naya. Of course, she was gonna find him, or do you think he found her?
She found him.
To make sure someone's spot is secure in the house. But every time Naya talks to Edwin, is it me, or does Edwin kind of seem like, you know, like, okay, you know, I'm talking... we have an okay connection, but it's kind of like he feels the energy is not really in sync.
Well, from what he knows or what he's heard from the night before with Chris's elimination, I think he picks up people's energy. And
I don't think he picks up people's energy.
I do.
I just think he probably picked up her energy more so, because it's kind of like, how are you going to go from one person, literally, who you've been with since day one, and then now all of a sudden he didn't fit into your profile, now you choose me? It's kind of suspicious.
Well, I think that's picking up on someone's energy. I don't think you have to necessarily have a connection with someone. You can even be one other woman in the house. Your energy is negative. What you brought with you now to me, which would be Edwin, is something that's on a different slope, maybe I haven't seen before. That's still energy, whatever you want to call it. And I think he picked up on it, but I also think he's such a cool, calm, collective gentleman that's not going to necessarily, rock the boat.
You better shoot your shot.
I just don't think he's going to rock the boat. And I don't think he would do that with anyone in the house. But the conversation with Naya, though, it seems like every time you see her talking with someone, it's about what Chris wasn't going to do. You know, what he wasn't about, and why she was just didn't feel like he was for her, and said, you know, not is what it is.
But Edwin brings stability that she's looking for now on paper.
Right.
And, you know, I did not pick up on this. I was just like, you know, but I didn't really take this all in until we get to the end of the episode, which we are going to save for last. So we already also know that Jay is still stuck between Winter and Joy. I honestly think he's leaning more towards Joy than he is Winter. But he's still trying to feel Winter out just to see if maybe it can go somewhere. And plus, I feel like he likes having two women to choose over.
Well, I think they all should weigh their options. And I agree, too. I think he has Joy rather than Winter. He even said that last week with their friends. But I still say he likes Winter's intellectual conversation and her energy, because he also gave off, or he even said the word energy. He likes her vibe, how elevated she is. I'm not saying that Joy doesn't give off the same positivity, but there's something empowering based off of what Winter does for a living that gives that vibe, that zhuzh that he notices. So while they're talking, Winter asks Jay, does he think this process is real? He says, yeah, I think it's real. And Winter says, well, you know, I feel bad because I know you like Joy. And that's something I notice with Winter. Every time she's with Jay, she always says, oh, I feel bad because I know that you like Joy. But okay.
I wouldn't.
But you like Jay too. You're feeling it with Jay. So stop saying that. Like, shoot your shot, like you just said. Yeah. Shoot it and keep shooting it. But Jay says, you know, he's not trying to rock the boat. And he did tell her he feels something with them both, and he's a peaceful brother. That's his thing. He's peaceful.
I feel like it's low-key a bunch of baloney. You know you're going to have to choose someone eventually, and then you're liking someone more than the other. And I feel like at some point, and hopefully soon, like next week, he finally chooses who he wants to be with, so Winter can go about her way and find somebody else if he chooses Joy, which I think that he is, because he's kind of giving Winter a false sense of
security.
Yeah, like it's gonna happen. So when we see her out on dates with other people, i.e. Brian, who we're definitely gonna get to in a little bit, she won't be able to open up as much. even if they're not might be the perfect match. But still, she won't open up as much because she's connected to Jay, and I think that Jay might need to let Winter know and kind of let her go at this point.
Well, let her go. I don't think he's ready to let her go. I think, like I said,
Selfish.
He's into the conversation, but he does need to make a solid decision because they're getting down to the nitty gritty, and he does need to decide who he wants to be his number one.
Then, speaking of Brian, we see Brian and Alex have a sit-down talk because Brian can feel that Alex is kind of like distancing herself, and Alex already knows this too. So Alex takes this time to express to Brian, you know, her issues and her concerns. And while, if you know from last season, you know where that's from. And while she was talking, it didn't seem like Brian was 100% listening. He was kind of like, okay, so do you want me to fall back, fall to the side? And it's kind of like, no, that's not what she wants you to do. It's kind of like, just be open, honest, real, so she can trust you. And then when she lets us know that she was in a 3-year abusive relationship, it was kind of like she didn't even say that she was in an abusive relationship because he didn't acknowledge it at all. It was only about Brian. And I was like, this is why I left you, Brian.
Does he know you left him?
In a few episodes, because it kind of seemed like it's all about what Brian wants. It's Brian time. Just about Brian, but it's like, what about the other people that you are trying to be here for, to find love? What did you think about that?
Well, yeah, Brian definitely doesn't listen to receive. He listens to respond.
Make him seem like he's the ultimate man.
He doesn't listen to receive. He listens to respond. And Brian comes across a little cocky, maybe a lot cocky, like the world revolves around him, kind of like he's the catch, he's the prize. And we do hear that again later from somebody. But he doesn't take the time to listen, to communicate. And that's when he was on the bottom. That's one of the things that was trying to get expressed to him before, but I think they had the wrong person. Denise expressed that to Brian. I think maybe they should have had someone more like a Winter expressed to him about his communication. About his communication factor, because he really isn't listening. And when Alex brought up her being in a 3-year abusive relationship, I think that's where he could have took the time out to listen. And since he didn't, that just goes to show, like,
for Alex,
the reason why, you know, maybe she has to rethink things, like she was saying, and this may not be the match for her. Later on in the morning, we see Simone, and I was surprised at Simone. She decided she's going to take initiative and go ask someone for a date, and she asked Rashid. She's like, oh, will you go on a date with me? He was like, yeah, I'll go on a date with you. And Rashid said in his confessional, you know, I'm glad to be going out with someone else because Adriana's making connections with Khalfani. You know, he's not tripping, but he wants to have opportunity to date someone else too. So Simone was excited. She was like, you know, this was easier than I thought. And, you know, for someone to have so much, to have come into the house, it seemed like with so much confidence. I don't know if it's really there, but I'm glad that she's finally taken that initiative since, you know, Shay is not there no more to help her be messy, because that wasn't a good look. And to me, Simone is on the bottom just for those antics too.
Right. I mean, do you think anybody would have said no in the house? That's the whole reason why they're there. They can't go nowhere. You might as well go on a date, which I will say, for them being on a resort, production has really made some nice scenes for them in their dates. We had the tiki bar on the water. We had the canoe. They had that truck picnic for Rashid and Simone. It was really cute.
It was cute. And Rashid said that, you know, since he's a car guy, he got like this old truck. It looked like an old, like, 50s, maybe Sanford or Son type truck, and with a blanket. And was there hay on the back?
I don't know, probably.
Anyways, they had champagne and they had a good time. They connected, and of course, conversation come up. And one thing I noticed about Rashid, with all the dates he's gone on, that includes with Adriana, he's always asked a lot of questions.
Like personal questions?
Personal, in-depth questions. Why do you think that is?
Well, probably because, you know, I would want to say because the women want to get to know him. But I'm also kind of thinking it was that narcissistic comment that came up earlier in the show. So people were trying to feel him out, be like, okay, so maybe there's something in depth about him. And sure enough, it was.
Yeah, well, we learned a few things about Rashid, but at this date, we learned that when he was younger, he had a hard time reading. His mom wouldn't accept his learning disability, and he overcame, became successful, got a college degree with honors, and look at him today. And Simone was like, oh, that's nice. That's so good. Well, what else? And you know what? They got real comfortable. Simone got real giddy, and they went in for that kiss. I was like, okay, Simone, I see you this time.
Yeah, she's definitely trying to put herself out there. Hopefully, finding love and not just wanting to stay on the show to get exposure. But only time will tell, pretty much with everybody on this show. The next date that we see is a yoga date with Edwin and Joy. And it looked like a very cute date. They seemed like they were both very into this. This definitely seemed like something that Edwin is into. Though I think he was talking for a long time during this date too. But I just think he's long-winded in general. Not saying he doesn't have anything to say. It's just he has a lot to say, and I don't hear lots of breaths being taken.
Well, I can relate to Edwin. He does have a lot to say, and when you have a lot to say, you do come across long-winded, such as myself too.
But I thought this date was very nice and relaxing, and I don't know, it's kind of just me, or it might not be just me, but anytime that I see people interacting with feet, I find that to be really intimate. So I felt like they were having a few intimate moments with each other. I was like, Edwin is definitely getting his rounds in, and I can't be mad at that.
And Joy had a good time too. What's that tantric yoga? That's something I think you want to try once upon a time, or whatever the case may be. But it's more like a sensual type yoga where you connect with using your body parts, just getting
told you the
close
intimacy with the feet. I feel like feet are very intimate because I don't like people touch me with their feet. I know this is going off track, but it was their date and looked fun. Would you do that, Mom?
I don't know, and I don't know if I would think the feet are a connection, but if you say so, it is. Moving on to that tiki date you were talking about, we have Brian, we have Alex.
No, you thought it was Alex because Brian been with Alex this whole time. It was Brian and Winter, Khalfani and Adriana. And side note, when did Khalfani get a beard? I didn't notice to this episode. But I thought it was kind of interesting that Brian chose Winter this time around.
You thought it was interesting? I thought it was awkward.
It wasn't interesting like that per se. It was interesting from the words that he chose. And I believe he chose the words that he was sewn.
He said,
because I was like, what word is that? I've never heard that word before.
The words Brian was choosing to use was sewed up and things like that. And sewed up, I'm surprised you never heard of it. I heard of it. Sewed up, hemmed up, it's all the same.
Well, sewed up with who? Sewed up with Alex? Because you were wanting to pursue Alex even, post Alicia when all that mess happened. So now it's kind of like you're sewed up with Alex. I wasn't feeling that. Just because she wanted to take a little bit of a step back because you weren't really listening. I was not feeling that at all. And you can tell Winter was kind of like awkward. Like, why am I here if you were feeling Alex?
She was very uncomfortable because she was saying am I here just to, be a distraction for you? And Brian's trying to convince her no, I've always liked you. I'm really wanting to get to know you. What do you say? Thick thighs save lives. I was like, there you go. See, this is what they talking about, Brian. You don't come across like you're being serious. I mean, that was a little cutesy-tootsie comment, but maybe it's a cutesy-tootsie comment when you're actually with somebody and you're saying little cutesy-tootsie things to each other, and that just was not the time. But Winter was going along with it. She was like, kind of when's this going to be over, right? And then Winter poses a question with Khalfani and Adriana, and Khalfani gives the answer he likes the way she looks at me,
that she's very bubbly, energetic, unlike some people in the house. I was like, I caught that little slight shade. But at the same time, I was kind of like, where is Denise at? I felt like she was going to come hell or high water to find out what Khalfani was doing. The whole episode with Khalfani and Adriana, I was just like, where's Denise? Well, when they got back, Khalfani and Adriana were snuck off in a corner and they finally had a kiss. I was like, I thought they already had a kiss. But they shared a connection. I was like, this seems like it might end up going somewhere and Denise might have to definitely find somebody else, or I don't know what's going to happen with that.
So as everyone moved back in the house, it looks like everyone either just had dinner or was after dinner, dessert time, whatever the case may be. But somehow they got into a freestyle contest.
Mm-hmm. It was so H-Town, Houston style. I'm like, it's so interesting to hear other people from different regions, how they rap, because they were so southern, so trill. I was like, they need to make this into an album. This sounds like it was good. And Khalfani stole the show. And Khalfani didn't just steal the show. He stole Adriana's heart a little bit. She was really digging this. And then that's when they kissed. So we went a little bit too early with the kiss, but they still end up kissing, which was very shocking and surprising. But I'm low-key happy for that.
I don't think it was shocking and surprising. I just think the way that Khalfani pushed up on Adriana, he was real close and comfortable with her. So I wasn't surprised at that at all. So now it's time for the men to meet up with nephew Tommy to talk about who they like, who they're feeling, who they vibing. You know, the same thing from week to week. And we're going to start with Brian.
Brian, oh my goodness. He does not give a straight answer, never. Everybody notices. Nephew Tommy notices this. I low-key feel like Nephew Tommy doesn't really care for Brian because he was like, so how is things going with Adriana? He's like, what do you say, something about adversity?
He's like, well, everyone goes through adversity, but I'm working through it.
And Nephew Tommy is like, no, just answer the question. Is it growing stronger? Is it going weaker? He said streaker. Here he goes with another word, another made-up word, another ad-lib. Just answer the question. But he feels like he can get her back on his team. But someone else who's feeling a little bit of Alex is Rashid, because they had a little date earlier and they connected. Once again, Rashid getting the deep and in-depth life questions, and in return, Alex was able to open up to Rashid like she's been wanting. So maybe she might start to look Rashid's way since Brian isn't giving Alex what she needs.
Right. And then Joy came up. And of course, we have Edwin, who said the light of his life. And Jay.
Strong word.
And they were like, that's what you mean? So again, Joy's a strong contender. She's still here. Edwin said he connects to her. We all know that Jay connects with her too, but I still say Joy has a decision to make, and so does Jay, to see which way they want to go. I think Edwin's in the mix because he's friendly. He offers good communication. I think that's why he's around still. And then we're asked about Adriana and, of course, Khalfani.
And Rashid.
And Rashid, that's Rashid's girl for now, but he understands that she's going to mix and mingle, and he's okay with Khalfani in the mix too. And then they have Winter, and Jay was saying how, she's cool and stuff like that. And the same thing with Simone, who's starting to come up a little bit, open up, and starting to see that. And Rashid is starting to bat for Simone too a little bit.
Which was kind of surprising.
And then they get to Naya. And that's when most of the men are like, yeah, how she flipped the script on Chris, pretty much. I'm ad-libbing. It's not cool. Like, if she could do that to him and he was really digging her, he was falling in love with her, then she can do that to us. But when they got to Anthony...
I thought it was funny before you get to that, when Nephew Tommy was like, yeah, she cut Chris to the white meat. I'm like, it was cold. Like, I've been seeing what other people have been saying, and she's been trying to defend herself. But this episode kind of sealed the deal for me, but continue.
But Anthony was like, she was cool with me pretty much. I'm like, Anthony, okay, speak your truth, but maybe you're the only one who may have seen this even after what you may have learned about what happened with Naya.
But that happened with Denise too when that got brought up, because Anthony was saying he was feeling Denise, but then Khalfani was like, yeah, I like Denise, she's cool, but she really need to slow it down with the jealousy thing, because it started not to work in her favor anymore.
And I think Anthony needs to take heed to that. But again, I really haven't seen Anthony.
Anthony's trying to get in where he fits in,
I guess, but he needs to mingle more. We need to see Anthony more, because How's we gonna get to know who he connects with? Maybe he ought to shoot his shot with Winter. Who knows? Speaking of Winter, we didn't touch on this earlier. They had a little scene where Winter noticed Anthony in his swim shorts earlier. And she's like, oh, did you know he was all buff and built and all that stuff, ladies? Yeah, we did. You just now learning that, Winter. Where have you been?
Well, Anthony wasn't really putting himself out like that, so it seems. So, you know, if you're not putting yourself out like that, I'm not just going to notice you in regular old clothes. So maybe if you do have some swim trunks and a tank top on, then I might notice you, especially if I'm looking for a new contender.
No, but they work out every day at the pool. How'd you not notice? But moving on to the eliminations. Up for elimination is Naya and Denise.
Yeah, when we saw Naya and Denise, I already knew who was going home. Even though some people might want Denise to go home, it wasn't her time yet. But Naya really rubbed people the wrong way, especially and only when it came to that whole Chris situation. So when Rashid was talking to her about it, because Rashid is the one who was the most opinionated when it came to that meeting with nephew Tommy, he was like, you know, I was there when Chris was almost like professing his love for you. He really vibed with you. He really connected with you. And it kind of seemed like it was unfair because you wanted to skip out on him because he wanted to do half on the finances.
And Naya was like, well, you know, that's what I want. I shouldn't feel bad for what I'm looking for, what I need for a man to fit my needs. Mm-hmm. And when Rashid was about to tell Naya it was time for her to go, she got up, took her wine and said, you know what, say it to the couch.
And he said it to the couch.
He did. He's like, well, you've been eliminated.
But it was wrong. Like, just because he said he wanted to split 50-50, you don't have to, in what her words say, I'm going to be splitting next. But then it wasn't even that whole conversation. It was after that happened. Because she didn't want to sit down to have the interview with the producers. She was like, you guys aren't going to embarrass me. She basically felt like she was the baddest one in the house. But, you know, everyone can say what they feel. If you think you bad, I guess. But if you have to keep saying, you know, I'm bad and I have the best personality in the house, you clearly don't have the best personality. Because you don't have to keep saying that to people for it to be shown. But then for her, sorry mom, for her to go off on say, you know, I wasn't feeling Edwin. I didn't like nobody in the house. I just came here to weigh out my options. I got a boyfriend waiting for me in ATL. I have options. It was like, then why were you on this show?
Exactly. Why were you on the show? She said she was on the show, like you said, like she said, to weigh her options. But then again, where did it get you? Because the backlash, whether you've seen them, read them, heard them, will tell you hasn't been good. So, best of luck to you, Naya, and we'll see what's going to happen next week because I'm looking forward to next week's episode where one man and one woman will be eliminated, and now seem like everybody is a contender to be eliminated.
Well, I'm definitely having my eye out for this reunion because that Naya situation, the Alicia situation, looks like it's going to be a Brian situation, and maybe even Edwin in the mix too. It's definitely going to be a mess. Oh, I'm not going to forget about Denise, that whole entanglement issue. But I'm definitely here for these episodes. I wish they can cut back on the drama just a little bit and actually bring the love. But you know, it only depends on these contestants. So let us know what you guys thought about this episode in the comments down below. I feel like Edwin. Make sure you guys give this video a thumbs up. You guys subscribe to our channel. And you share this video to other people who watch Ready to Love as well.
Thank you all for watching. And as always, live simply, be grateful.